Hello chaps. Can we fix the Zerging? And how do we make the game enjoyable again? I wrote this script in May 2017 to follow on from my previous video, Is Planetside 2 Dying? In it I discussed the current state of affairs and how Zerging and active player numbers were decreasing, implants, tanks, RNG and other subjects. And if you have missed it, please go and check it out and let me know your thoughts. But what I want to talk to you about today is how we can fix Zerging and how do we make the game enjoyable for new players and salty vets alike once again. With the recent design features which we will see in the dev live stream tomorrow, I feel my design I suggested all this time ago has finally been looked at, and I feel I need to expand on this and voice my opinions before it gets tainted. Now the real question, is this gonna be an easy fix? Most probably not. Is this something that is an achievable goal? I want to say anything is possible, right? So why does it seem the devs are wasting their time and money on development that doesn't need to be done? I'm scared Daybreak aren't and don't want to do any more to this game in terms of map design, base design and redeploy logistics, and general anything that is heavily involved in the everyday play of Planetside 2. They simply just don't have the staff for it or the budget anymore. So where does that leave us? Planetside is based on 3 factions fighting each other on a continent from 3 different warp gates. So what is the problem with this? Well, regardless what will happen is you will get a stalemate between 2 factions where the population is even from each side at a major base and what is commonly referred to as a choke point on the map. These choke points are normally on towers, biolabs or amp stations. These are well fortified, easy to defend bases, and most of the players who we class as the farmers and vets will know to redeploy to these and defend from them, as this will gain them more kills, higher streaks, and is a relatively low risk for them. So what does this mean? Well, people get bored of this shit quickly, especially the attacker. The problem with the player who farms is they only defend. They never attack. They've done that in the first 2,000 to 3,000 hours and have learned to adapt their play to get kills rather than put your body on the line to get the point. In turn, the attackers look at attacking somewhere else, somewhere that is less camped by experienced members and with a lower base camp timer. So if they don't want to attack each other anymore, they then start to attack the other faction, the 3rd faction. So indeed, yes, you may have one huge fight of TR versus VS going all out on each other, and for example Quartz Ridge. Then people get bored and they look at other endeavours from both those factions, so that huge fight starts to dwindle and spread onto the other front. This happens gradually over time until you then have 2 factions attacking the other faction, and in this case the NC can't distribute its population correctly to deal with the 50% of the server population attacking on both its fronts, which results in penultimately a stalemate, a 1 choke point, and a Zerg and a push to warp gate from the other 2. So how can we fix this? Well, this has been discussed so many times over the years, and I don't know if we can fix it, or if we can ever fix it. But I feel one of the biggest problems is the map. Its design is very square with 3 warp gates. It doesn't have a forward and backward movement as a frontline would in a real war. But how can we fix this without removing a faction? This is certainly something that I'm yet to decide completely on. We can make a start on it. My design is to suggest making the map more donut shape in lattice design, with no bases in the center that can be capped, and promote building of construction bases here where it's on a big blank canvas to get crazy on. This can be expanded to have lattice added links stemming to the construction system linking to the closest adjacent base. Then the fights can only be pushed 2 ways from each of the warp gates, allowing a steady flow of battle, and give goals of pushing to the construction bases to kill the enemy hives which they may have built for the alerts. This will potentially stop any 3-way fights, which sometimes for me can be the most enjoyable fights you can have in Planetside. However, the 3-way fights can occur in no man's land in the middle of the lattice links. You can then build your bases as close to as far away from the allied support and implement a hex system into the no man's land, which will add to the faction's territory. Then in turn, make biolabs and amp stations strongholds that can be bypassed if needed by smaller satellite bases. In turn, forcing the defenders out to defend and stop themselves from being cut off. These larger bases will border with no man's land. This for me could potentially fix Planetside. It won't bring an end to the Zerging, but it forces people from their camping safe havens to counter the Zerging. It is simple. A Zerg cannot fight a Zerg. They always avoid each other. The only thing tried and tested that stops a Zerg is time. You let the Zerg diminish. Once a Zerg hits a warp gate, it can't go any further. So in turn it just dissipates. This will either leave the Zergers to redeploy to the other lane, or push into the center of the map on a full withdrawal. This is what I believe can help promote Planetside to new players. It brings meaning to fights again, brings a purpose to them, and is more linear so new players can understand it. It would certainly be something that I would like to see on a new continent styled on a remodeled Indar. Then, as a side note, we can remove the victory system, make the new meta once again that you need to connect your lattice links to both warp gates to lock the continent. If the opposing faction succeeds, then the Zerging force is rewarded with the continent bonus or in-game items and ISO. However, equally punished locking the continent, this will then dispel the fight, which normally will decrease the size of the Zerg considerably. The fight will continue on the next continent, or possibly the numbers will spread across other continents. However, the Zerg is stopped and the fight can continue elsewhere. In theory, if the continent doesn't lock and one side is being Zerged, then this will normally leave a weaker side to defend from, and thus allow the opposing faction to make a counter-attack to stop the Zerging faction from either capturing the continent or allow them to attack the continent. On paper, this will create a rubber band effect between the 3 warp gates and allows for more linear gameplay and easier to find where the fights are for new players. This particular continent, if trialed, could be the answer to the future of Planetside and getting new players to join and be retained for the long run. Once we have those new players, they tend not to leave, or at least come back regularly. With a more linear game design, it will create an easy means of flanking, a simple design to follow, and will actively counter the Zerg. I always say, keep things simple. It's the means to a better game, and sometimes that's all we need. It'll be interesting to hear about tomorrow's developer streams and whether the ideas I have suggested all this time ago get implemented, or how it has changed over time. If you can spare a few moments, I do appreciate the feedback from you guys. Do you think that this could save Planetside? Or do you think my ideas will make things worse? Do you have a better idea on how to counter Zerging and save Planetside? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you have any other questions, be sure to let me know. And as always, Thanks for watching, and see you next time.